All right, what's up, everybody? This is Ian from Vetrepreneur. We have a super cool Vetrepreneur growth session today, building your crowdfunding campaign from preparation to launch. I'm joined, as always, by Aaron Saari, CEO and founder of This Is Growth. Aaron, what's up? And yeah, it's going. And then, so today we have a special guest, Lydia Davey, CEO and founder of Mariah Creatives PR. She's a former Marine. And overall super smart, creative PR genius. Lydia, what's going on? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
And yeah, so came out here to San Francisco 4 years ago, and I help purpose-driven people and organizations grow strong brands. So I've had a lot of fun experience in the tech sector, working with authors, and also running a couple of fairly successful crowdfunding campaigns.
And that is exactly what we want to talk about today. So I'm gonna post your website in the chat. It's mariahcreativespr.com. So post that in there. You can check her out and check out her work and her clients. She does fantastic stuff and is going to be great today. So, whether you're building a crowdfunding campaign on Indiegogo, Kickstarter, whoever, there's some kind of basic rules and things that you need to know. And one of those is that it's all about preparation. The time leading up to when you actually launch your campaign is the most important time. And to borrow a phrase from Einstein, if you have an hour to solve a problem, spend 55 minutes diagramming the problem, then 5 minutes solving it. So it's the same thing with crowdfunding. You want to spend the majority of your time optimizing in prep. And that really boils down to two things that we're going to talk about today. And that is, planning your PR before you launch and then building your list. And so Lydia's going to talk about the PR portion, and then Aaron's going to talk about the tactical implementation of building a list. So Lydia, go for it.
Sure. Yeah, so I love to think about PR for crowdfunding in kind of three separate buckets. The first is research, the second is build, and the third, execute. And expect to spend some serious time on each of these phases. I think people often underestimate the amount of time it takes to prep for a successful crowdfunding campaign. But the research phase, as Ian mentioned, is actually really important. And that starts with looking at social movements. What's happening and how is what you're trying to sell or raise capital for, how is that connected to what's happening in the world and what's happening in culture around us? For instance, if you've got a tool that could be used by freelancers or people working in a co-working space or something like that, how do you think about your product in terms of making it valuable to that specific group of people? So think about social movements. The second is do the research to find a mentor brand. For instance, if you're producing a book, you might look at the Indiegogo platform and see what are the most successful book campaigns that have ever been. You could probably Google this, or you could probably search within Indiegogo for it. But what are the most successful campaigns to raise funding for a book? What did the rewards look like? What did the videos look like? Are there commonalities between the way, the length of the video, the ways the videos was set up, and also look at some of the failures and understand, to try to understand what made them less successful. Just based on kind of packaging and presentation alone. So understand social movements, find some mentor brands, and then also do kind of an audit of the media landscape and understand what kind of news coverage products have gotten in the past. So if for instance, going back to the book, what outlets and what reporters have covered the launch of a beautiful book. Maybe it's there was a campaign a while ago about photos of the last tribes, and this photographer went around the world and photographed these tribes that were kind of rapidly being assimilated into dominant cultures, and the things that made them really special and unique were quickly fading away because of environmental changes and social changes and economic changes. And so he'd really created this beautiful collection of art that may not be possible to gather again in another 10 or 15 years. So it was a really special project, got a lot of news coverage. So look for the types of news coverage, and understand who's interested in telling these stories and what outlets are likely to tell the stories. So that's kind of the research phase. And I recommend taking a week or so to do this, or several really long days, and just expect to dedicate time to this, take good notes, and really understand that the prep work you're doing will help you effectively message everything that you're going to build in the second phase. And so moving on into Ian, did you have a question?
Yeah, so I was going to say, are you trying to ride the wave of what those, are you trying to tap into like things that are being, like searched on something like Quora, or, looking at what's trending on Twitter? Are you trying to like ride some of that, or are you trying to see like what is popular? I mean, so in your research, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think I do. Yeah, you might look on Google Trends or see what's trend. I think you can absolutely do that, and you also have to be careful about it, because if you hop onto for instance, going back to that tribe example, if you took one of the images of one of these lost tribes, and maybe it's a falconer in Mongolia or something like that, and you like threw up that picture on Twitter and did like the Man Crush Monday hashtag, like it might be a little confusing for people, or like they might feel like you're kind of hijacking or taking advantage of this movement. So I think you have to do it very thoughtfully. But it's really about understanding the language and what people are interested in, and the language that they're using to talk about the things that they're interested in, so that when you build out your press release, when you start pitching reporters, when you draft your copy for your Indiegogo campaign, that you understand how to use the right language to communicate. And maybe it's a phrase like co-working, or maybe it's a phrase like the maker movement, but using these things throughout your copy so that your potential customers have an easier time recognizing themselves in what you're doing.
So it's similar to like a look-alike or something like that, where you're trying to say like this, I like exactly how this looks, I like how this feels, it's also done really well.
Right.
And so I get it. So you're not really like hijacking the headline as much as just kind of creating it similar using the same verbiage. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So that kind of moves us into the second phase, which is the building phase. And this is also a really important phase. And I think I recommend a week or two in this phase to make sure that what you're doing is done really, really well. This is the important foundation for a successful campaign. And you're going to be building out a few different products, and I'll briefly touch on them and then kind of circle back and talk about each in depth. The first product you're going to be building is a press release or a pitch. The second is going to be a media list, media contact list. The third is going to be a video. And the fourth is going to be a home for your fans to live. So I'll start with the home, and that might look like a Facebook page. It might look like a website, which I think Aaron is going to talk about. It might look like a Reddit thread. Basically, where's the place you want to keep folks engaged? You're, of course, going to be updating them within the platform and communicating with them there. But after that fades away in 30, 60, 90 days, where do these people connect with you? And so think about building a home for your community. So that's the first thing.
Let me just say on that really quick too, that so if you're planning on launching your campaign in 6 months, right? Mm-hmm. It's like you need to have a home for them until the day that you actually launch. And then once you launch, every single amount of effort is going to go into the campaign page, right? So it's like you have a 6-month timeline where you need to optimize people's engagement and different sort of things. So that's kind of what you mean by home. It's like pre-launch before you have the whatever page set up.
Yeah, pre-launch. And I think 6 months seems like a really long time to me, just because, and I'll tell you why, because you want to be delivering. You can only build anticipation for so long before you have to start delivering value. And otherwise people are going to feel like they're, I think millennials in particular are especially sensitive to being kind of overly marketed to, or feeling like they're constantly being pitched. Like they want to have a natural kind of back and forth and a natural conversation, and that requires providing value. So if you can find a way to do that over the span of 6 months, awesome, and absolutely. And maybe you grow, your community, whether it's your email list or your website, or, you're producing amazing content through a blog or something like that, or a Facebook page. And maybe you can sustain that for a long time. But whether it's 6 months or whether it's a few weeks, and you invite your community to come and like it in anticipation of the launch, definitely have that in place. And then as you mentioned, of course, always, the updates that you post to this home for your community should always be linked directly to your crowdfunding campaign. And you should be pushing people there on a regular basis once the campaign launches.
Yeah, and I think it depends on product too a little bit, right? I mean, it's like if you're building a hardware product or something like that, like crowdfunding campaign in 4 months because it's like pretty complex. So like tech-based hardware or something, like they're probably like, oh, okay, I get it. You need some time before you launch the campaign. But yeah, if it's something smaller.
Yeah, and if it's something more complex, then that's great, because you can talk about breakthroughs, you can talk about exciting new things, get people familiar with the team working on the product, and build that kind of relationship and human connection. So absolutely. The next thing is to look at building out a media contact list. And when I do this, I have the name of the outlet, the name of the reporter, their email and contact information, headlines from the stories that they've written that I think are in some way related, or related enough that when I email them and pitch them, I can say, hey, Jane, I really loved this article you did in TechCrunch, last month about this product. I think I have a story that will be just as interesting for your readers. And here it is. So one of the things that I do, no matter, if it's a crowdfunding campaign or if I'm working with a client in some other area, is personalized pitches to journalists. And we can get to that on the execute phase, but build out robust data for your media contact list and really spend time collecting good information so that you can send out personalized pitches so you're not spamming a reporter. And then third, press release or pitch. I find a lot of people, when they're writing press releases, bury the lead. And by that I mean, you can read 3 paragraphs into a press release before you know what the heck is going on. That's
totally agree.
Yeah, so that's a waste of time for journalists. It's a waste of time, for friends and family who might be reading this and kind of wanting to share your pitch around. Be thoughtful as you're writing about calling out what you're doing and why it matters as close as possible to the top. So build out this, and a structure that I found really effective for pitches is not to build out, a 2-page press release with with quotes from 12 different people and this long rambling history. Like, you don't need any of that. What you need is a succinct 3-paragraph pitch that talks about who you are and why you're connected to or care about this project, what you're doing, and then why it matters to the person you're pitching. And you could say in bullet points, here are 3 reasons I think your readers are going to connect to this. First, it's a compelling human interest story. Second, it's a product that matters to your readers. If you're doing say you're creating some kind of smart collar for a dog, you can say, Life with Dogs TV, we think your readers are going to love this because here's what's, we know that, greater and greater 80% of pet owners in America are interested in or open to smart products for their pets. And so this has, kind of a current news cycle tie to what you're doing. So 3-paragraph pitch, who you are and why you're connected, what you're building, and why it matters to the person you're pitching. And then finally, video is key. And projects that have a video are 40% more likely to get funded successfully. A video really matters. And you don't have to have a film crew. You don't have to invest $20,000, although if you wanted to, do that freely, and hopefully they're a great crew. You really can take an iPhone or your computer and in any one of many programs, put together, with a little post-production work or working on a template, put together a compelling pitch video. And the research that you've done before, looking to your mentor brands as example of successful storytelling, that learning will provide really helpful guidance to you as you think about, how do I tell this specific story? And then you move on to execute. And
I just want to touch really quick on the video piece. Yeah, I mean, especially with iPhone 7 now, it's like beyond a joke. Their camera's ridiculous. But iPhone 6S and 6, their camera is so good that you really, if you're bootstrapping, that video, it's by far good enough. The super important thing is crystal clear audio. Audio is way more important. Like, people who hear crappy video or see crappy-ish video, but really good audio is going to convert way higher than crappy audio and whatever. Now, again, you're probably not going to have crappy video if you're shooting with an iPhone. It's just really clear, or iPad or whatever. And then I was going to say that, with regards to having a video, you literally have to have it. It's not an option. So just don't even do a crowdfunding campaign if you're not going to do a video. And you can go on places like Fiverr or wherever and find someone that can chop up the video and put some music behind it and do whatever for super cheap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I filmed about 2.5 years ago. I just put together a video using my Mac. And our goal was to raise, through a crowdfunding platform, $10,000 to publish this book about a homeless veteran, his dog, and his cat, and they kind of live out in the wilderness together, and he takes these beautiful images of their lives together. And so I put together a video on the Mac, and I think that was a big part. That video was shared so much, so often, and I think that was why we were successful and ended up exceeding our fundraising goal by 40%. I think that played, music matters, music and a good story and beautiful images. And you really can, as you said, there are also some really neat add-ons. There's a 4-lens kind of accessory kit called the Ollie Clip. I take it with me when I travel, and you can get beautiful, they've got, a fisheye lens, they've got a macro lens. So that's a really, it doesn't cost much to upgrade your iPhone even a little bit more to get some really great, depth of field shots and panoramic shots and all of that. So.
Yeah. And if you have no clue how to do any of this, just find an expert and ask them. Go talk to Lydia. Because yeah, it's like, if this is all, you know, if you don't know how to do any of this, then don't do it because you're probably not an expert at it. That's fine too.
Or you can just find like most people, one of your friends probably posts a ton on Instagram and they have great photos and videos. They probably have one of these tools like an Ollie clip, or, you know, like they probably have all the little things that you need and enough expertise that they'll blow it out, you know? So like, these people are accessible, you know, just look in the places where you'd easily find people that are doing a lot with video and photos, like Instagram. And I guarantee it's one of your friends even.
Yeah, that's a great point, Aaron. And you know, nothing says you have to do all of this yourself. And in fact, I think it is really powerful to pull together a team of people who can help you, even as kind of friend consultants, you know, friend consultants who can come in, and whether they're, you know, your photographer for the week, or helping you build out your story, or just kind of refine how you're going to talk about this, or make sure, you know, edit your copy and make sure it looks good. Definitely pull together, you know, your talented friends and enlist their help on one of these phases.
If friend sultans didn't sound so weird, I want to see if that domain is taken, because that's great.
Oh, I like it.
That's a pretty good one.
I know.
I wrote that down too. I'm like, I'm gonna check that out here in a second. It's true that, you know, like actually on that same point, the great thing about bringing in friends on a project like this too, that's consumer facing project, is that if they get involved with the project, they also just became, you know, part of the, you know, they're part of the project now. They're word of mouth marketers for you, because this is a project that they're now personally invested in. They gave some time to, right? So the more people you can get involved in actually making the project physically come to fruition, that's more people that you have word of mouth marketing for you.
Absolutely. And I think that leads really well into the execute phase. And I'll just kind of briefly go through these principles. And the one that you just referred to, Aaron, I have on my list here as empower evangelists. And you will see, as you move forward into the execute phase, people who are constantly sharing your story for you. And these people will kind of surface, and they're consistently, as you reach different funding goals, you know, as you reach your 30%, as you cross that 50% mark, as you get to 75, these are the people who are going to, and as you get news coverage, who are going to be celebrating with you and sharing to their networks. And so I always encourage folks to invest in their evangelists, send them thank you notes, tell them kind of insider information about what's happening with the campaign, any cool partnerships. Give them information first, so that they're really a part of it, because they are investing something into making you successful. And I think it's nice to give back in that way. You know, on the execute phase, there are kind of these 4 categories. Again, first is update regularly. And I think in terms of updates, the 80-20 rule is a good rule. 80% of your communications should be interesting news. You should be providing value. And only about 20% of your posts should be asking people for more money. Because nothing's more tiresome than being pinged 3 or 4 times a day, having the same person ask you to make, you know, a $250 donation. It's tiresome. It gets tiresome really fast. So I think update regularly, but keep the 80-20 rule in mind. And the 80% of the non-asks could look like telling people about your team, sharing really cool donor stories, talking about news trends that are related to your product, sharing the coverage that you've gotten. And as you meet fundraising goals, even if somebody gave $100 and you want to call them out and say, you know, thanks so much, Eric, for your donation of $100. That means we're this much closer to, you know, whatever the ultimate goal. And always link back. Provide a link every time you post or share back to that campaign, so people can click if they're curious. And people are curious. And then also pitch that list of journalists, and pitch your media list. In fact, I recommend doing that about 4 days before the campaign actually launches. So they get kind of insider information. there's nothing that starts out your campaign out so well as an amazing news story. And it normally takes reporters a day to, review your pitch, reach out, schedule an interview if they want to do that, collect the assets they need, and then write that story. So anticipate a 4 to 5 day cycle between that initial pitch and actually seeing something in print or online. And then ask for advice. Oh yeah, Ian.
No, yeah, I was just gonna say, most people don't understand really anything about journalists and how they work and different sort of things. And I think maybe talk just like really quickly on that, because I know that as I work for a media company where we have folks that reach out all the time, like, hey, could you push this story? I'm like, do you know what an editorial calendar is? Do you know how it works to be a writer and having things on deadline and having different sort of things? Like, you might not be getting into their timeline for the next month and a half. And like, they probably have a content arc. They have all sorts of things that they have planned for specific timelines. Even social media is that way these days. Like, well, we have 6 social media posts scheduled every single day for the next 2 months. It's like, where are you going to fit in? So I think that starting early and getting on their calendar early is way better. And also it shows that like, hey, I'm not shoving something at you last minute and I want you to do me a favor. Rather, I want to work in organically with what you're already doing and we can, do each other a favor.
Right. It's interesting with crowdfunding too, because to some degree, journalists don't want to stick their neck out for a product that has no traction. So
yep.
I agree with what you're saying. And building on that, I would also say that it's great to reach out to them, but they may watch and see if you hit that 30% mark, which, as you mentioned earlier, is so important. If you hit that 30% mark within the first couple of days, and if you do, then they can have a story prepped and ready to go, and they'll push go on that. But if they're seeing that you've got a cool product, but it's not gaining any traction, it's not likely to get funded, they're much less likely, I think, to kind of put their own reputation or the paper's reputation, publication's reputation at risk to tell that story. So there's there, I think. Yeah.
No, I think you're exactly right. So instead of saying, hey, and going to a journalist and saying, hey, I have this, we're doing this crowdfunding campaign. Maybe you go to them with a story like, hey, I have a ton of data on our, we've done a bunch of customer development. We know that people, your audience for, Horse and Hound magazine, it's a Notting Hill reference.
Yeah.
But, like your audience, really into horses and hounds. And we have this really cool data that we've been looking. You can run a story on this and then, you run it and put a link to the fact that we're starting a crowdfunding campaign for, horse, hound collars, like you talked about earlier, and that would be a cool way to get people interested in your page pre-launch of your campaign, so they don't have to kind of stick their neck out and be like, hey, this campaign that's not going to go anywhere. It's just, hey, go check out their website and see what they're working on. And then, maybe you want to sign up and give your email address. Mm-hmm. And that's a way more manageable thing. And you're providing them something cool that they can write about.
Agreed. Yeah. I think that's a really smart approach. And to that point, asking for advice and asking for contacts is something that's also really powerful. So, for instance, in the early days of your launch or even pre-launch, if you've got a good community on Facebook or Reddit or wherever else, and you say, hey guys, in 3 or 4 sentences, here's the story, here's the project, what are your recommendations for where I should pitch this? You can learn a lot from your community, and not only that, you can turn your friends into advocates for your story and use, if they're engaged and you take their advice and something good comes out of that, then they feel a sense of pride and ownership in what you're producing. And that's really powerful and is going to turn them from, your Facebook friend into one of those evangelists that we talked about earlier. So briefly recapping, the 3 phases are really research, build, and execute. In the research phase, you're studying social movements, you're looking at mentor brands, and you're exploring news coverage and trends. In the build phase, you're building out a press release. You are absolutely creating a video. You're building out a media list with lots of rich data. And finally, you're building a home for your fans. And then in the execute phase, it's really about regular updates following that 80-20 rule. It's about empowering your evangelist and building a personal connection with the people who are most invested in making you successful. It's about pitching well and in a way that's really smart to journalists. And finally, it's about asking for advice from your community. Don't feel like you need to have all the answers. No single person does. And it's really smart to show a little vulnerability and ask folks for their input. And that's a great way to engage your community. And that's what I've got.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And it fits right into kind of our next step as we switch to Aaron, of actually building your list. And I know I'm going to steal Aaron's thunder here because he's going to say, you get one customer, choose that customer. That's the only one you get. So we're going to build a list for a customer of a product that we have that is very specific. We're going back to our dog collars that are amazing, that do something super cool. That allow the dog to speak in English or something. And
you better be pretty awesome if you're doing Kickstarter dog collars.
Yeah, I know, right? It's going to be on friendsultants.com, which, by the way, I checked. It's available on GoDaddy. That's my gift to you, Mariah. I'll buy it. $2.99. So we're doing our thing. You get one customer, you get one type of customer, and you get to build this list very specifically for that type of customer. How the heck do we do this?
Yeah. So just a couple of things to reiterate on that are, just themes across like all of these, webinars that we've done is, so to pile on that, you get one customer. When you're a small business, you can't try to please tons of different people. You need, a few thousand people to buy your product. And out of the billions of people in the world, you want to focus on the smallest subsection that you can. So think of one customer very specifically. It's a 25-year-old single man who lives in California that has a dog. We'll stick with the dog analogy. And you get a specific type of dog, like a small dog, right? So like think of that based on what I just laid out. It doesn't even have to be small dog based on that. It's that 25-year-old single guy in San Francisco, let's say, that has a dog. Because of that definition, I can say, oh, my customer, if that's the customer, they're going to have a small dog more than likely because they're living in a major city, right? That person is going to, because they're single and they're living in San Francisco, they're going to have they have a lot of expenses, but they also have a large, amount of disposable income because they're single living in a major city, right? They probably have someone watch their dog during the day, or maybe they bring their dog to work because lots of places in San Francisco let you do that, right? So you can learn all these things about that customer by being really well defined on who that customer is. So, always go really deep on who's the customer for your product. And, outside of just marketing, the Kickstarter part is marketing for your product. The way that you design your product too should be designed for that very solo type of customer. Because that customer exists all over the place, but you need an example to design everything that we're building. Your whole business, as you start, needs to be designed around that single customer type. So put a lot of thought into that. Put so much thought into that you're bored by it. Because if you do that, if you misuse that, you're going to be trying to please way too many customers. So start there. Overarching piece is this stuff will take a lot of work. Just because Kickstarter's out there and they give you access to a lot of people, Indiegogo's out there, gives you a lot of access to people. A lot of these tools that we talk about on the internet, some of the things that I bring up are free. That doesn't mean that this is going to be easy. You need to be willing to put in a lot of time. Think of just all the things that Lydia talked about. That takes tons and tons of hours of time, dedicated, disciplined time, where you're not screwing around on Facebook. You're not taking a few hours off to watch Narcos on Netflix. You're putting in the time to do all this work. Because if you want to start a business that makes a bunch of money or has a big impact, it will take a ton of work. So even though these tools are out there to make it easier, you need to be willing to dedicate a ton of your time to making this actually work, because it's not going to do it for you. And I think that's a big misconception that I see from a lot of people. They're like, what's the easiest way to make my Kickstarter campaign successful? Like, well, generally put in the work. Like, you have to.
Yeah, and it's super interesting too. Not only off of your customer development there, you also, let's say you're going to get a list to a point where your family and friends, you think you can get to 30% of them are going to buy, right? That's just like people who love you and they're like, I'm going to spend, the $90 on your dog collar because I love you. And like, that's fine with me, right? If you think that you can get that list, like, I'm pretty sure that 30% of people that are my family and friends that love me dearly will buy this dog collar no matter what. It could be heinous and they're going to buy it. The rest of the people that are buying are super, super, super early adopters. They're buying something that does not exist. So not only do you have your customer segment of like, dog guy in San Francisco, expendable income, brings his dog to work, all that sort of stuff. You also need to find the people that are early adopters within that market and find where they live. Because not physically, but where do they live? What sites do they live on? Like, maybe they read TechCrunch. Maybe they don't. Maybe you just spent a week trying to get a really good lead at TechCrunch. And Lydia, you could talk about that in a sec, but maybe you just spent a ton of time getting an interview at TechCrunch when none of your early adopters are going to be on there because it's a physical, product dog collar that they don't really care about. That's non-tech or something like that.
And if I could hop in real fast, I would say you raise a great point, and that is strategic partnerships. Because those communities that you're talking about, where those people, what is there a group or a thread or a site or a blog or something, or a cluster of those where your single, as Aaron would say, where your single customer lives, and if so, reach out to them. It doesn't have to. You don't have to think about this necessarily in terms of publishing platforms. It can also be just groups of fans.
SPCA.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And give them a call. And actually, that's a great example because after the book was successfully published, thanks to a crowdfunding campaign, we did a book tour and shelters around the country, from Portland to California, hosted us to do book signings. And so you can extend those partnerships even after the campaign has ended to drive more sales. So
absolutely. Cool. So that's strategy stuff. Let's talk about building stuff. I'm gonna do a screen share here because I'm gonna show you a tool even that I used to build the thing I'm sharing with you while we were talking. So can you see my screen again?
Yep.
Awesome. So check this out. I'm using Canva. It's another free tool. Basically, it's Photoshop, but free and way easier. It has all this cool stuff built in. It lets you make really cool photos and presentations. I have a bunch of friends that use it for laying out websites. So they can give them to designers, stuff like that. Really cool free tool. And while we were talking, I laid out a launch timeline for what you need to build, how you need to engage. I didn't include all the things that Lydia was saying on here, but they fall into this general timeline. So I'm going to talk about building, one, and then engaging, two. And basically all of this is happening before you launch your campaign. So when you launch your Kickstarter campaign, after you launch the campaign, a lot of the work has already been done. By the time you're launching the campaign, you should just be acting on things that you've already prepared and maintaining. With that in mind, each of these phases here are going to be done way far out before you launch. So let's say, today's, September 21st. With this timeline, I'd be launching my campaign in December, if I was going to use 60 days to build things. So talking about, if you've defined your customer, the first things you need to do is build a place for those customers to live, those people to engage with you. So this first phase over here is just building all the things that you need to have in place to be able to to adequately engage with those customers, which is going to be the second phase over here, which is going to be that engagement and everything. And I've got 30 days of engagement built up here, 30 to 60 days for building. That's based on how long it takes you to build and how quick you are. But 30 days of actual engaging with customers after you've built the ways you're going to engage with them. So some of these assets for engaging, you need to have a website that they go to, and I'll go into some tools for some of these pieces here in a second. You need a place that they can go to, that they can read your updates, watch your videos, give you their email address, share your content, stuff like that. You also need email automation set in so that after they give you an email, they immediately receive a reply saying how they can get more engaged, where they can find more content, when you're going to give them more content, asking them to share your content, things like that. That should all be automated. If you're sending a manual email every time someone signs up on your list, you're doing it wrong, because there's tools that are free that let you do that. You want to build an editorial calendar. So for this 30 days of engagement, as well as during the launch campaign, you want to have your calendar of what you're going to post and when you're going to post it. Lydia and Ian talked a little bit about that from like the media side. That media companies, blogs, and things like that, they have an editorial calendar. You should have an editorial calendar too. And ideally, you've got that locked into large blog piece, when you're going to post which types of videos, what you're going to post, and when you're going to post it on things like Facebook. It should be really robust. Just keying in again, this all sounds like a lot of work, and it should. You're starting a business. You're asking people to give you money before you have a product. So you need to be willing to put in all this work if you want to launch this correctly and make it successful. So editorial calendar, which is laid out for these 30 days of pre-launch engagement, and then all of the days of actual post-launch engagement. You want to start developing, if not developing your video itself, at least mapping out what you want to have in that video, because maybe you'll develop that video in this, in this 30 days phase while you're still doing some, pre-launch engagement. But you definitely want to have that mapped out and what it's going to be. Maybe you're going to talk about your prototype, your team. There's so many things that go into a video. We could do a whole nother episode just on that. But you want to at least map out your video timeline. If not, start building it and get it complete. So you can even start sharing that video while you're building this engagement prior to launch. I mean, I'd recommend that, having this video built before you even start pre-launch engagement. And the other piece is keying on what Lydia said, is start building that press contact list. You spend a lot of time dedicated to that research, and then have that list built so that when you go into this pre-launch phase, which of those contacts you're going to reach out to in pre-launch, pre-campaign launch, and then also which ones you're going to reach out to later after you've launched. So things like, this is who I'm going to reach out to when I launch. This is who I'm going to reach out to after we've hit our 30% goal, things like that. So even those outreach pieces are built into almost your editorial calendar, but it's more the back end facing editorial calendar. And these are all things that you should be building, 30 to 60 days before you even present your idea to the public. So I'm going to show you really quick some pieces that can help you build this, your website, email automation, editorial calendar. You can do that in something like Excel, or Trello is actually great for that. Video development, we gave some examples on that, and Lydia jumped on press. So I'll just talk really quick about website development and email automation. The goal for your website and email automation is going to be for you to get people to sign up so that you can get in contact with them when you launch the campaign and keep them engaged, as well as for them to share your stories. So the purpose of the site that you're gonna launch is going to be, give me your email, and also share my content so that those people come and give me their email. So I'm going to show you a couple examples really quick of just good pre-launch websites. They aren't both for Kickstarter. This one isn't for Kickstarter, but the concept still works. So this is Harry's. It's a shaving company. They were doing a pre-launch for just them launching their company in general. They spent years perfecting their product. It's men's razors, super high quality, and they just had a simple landing page. Harry's is coming. Respect the face and wallet since right now. are respecting the face and wallet since like right now. Be the first to know, step inside. There's not a lot of fluff on this page. You know exactly what you're doing here. You're entering your email. You're going to learn about Harry's razors. There's a picture of the product here. You know, if you have a prototype for your product, you can put that on that page so people know when they come to the page, this is something that I'm interested in. You know, so if we're talking about our talking dogs again, the thing on that page is going to be, you know, something with really good messaging and a really good photo that speaks to, don't you wish you could have, a conversation with your best friend, you know, and then it has a picture of your dog, right? So that's a good landing page for a pre-launch. What they did is after you gave your email address, they have worked in here ways that you can, they really incentivize you to share the content and get other emails to sign up. So they built in a way that after you signed up with your email address, you got a unique referral code and you shared that, and the number of people that gave their email addresses from your referral code impacted other incentives that you got. You know, so it's almost like it's the same type of concept as a Indiegogo or Kickstarter campaign, where, you know, you're giving out things based on the amount of money that people put in. But instead, this time, you're giving out things based on the number of email addresses that people put in, right? So you can do the same thing as Kickstarter before you even launch and ask for money. You're asking for something a lot lower value than money, which is an email address. So you can build in things like this. And there's tools that help you do that. The one that comes off the top of my head, one is LaunchRock. It's a really easy out-of-the-box landing page builder from startups.co. They've got a bunch of other properties that help you with funding and getting found and stuff like that too. But LaunchRock is really simple, out-of-the-box landing page builder. They make it easy for you to keep track of who's the most engaged, who's giving you the most referrals. So, you know, after you've gone into the launch phase where you're starting to engage and collect email addresses, like Lydia was talking about, you can start reaching out to those people that are giving the most referrals or being the most engaged, and, you know, incentivize them more. Really empower those evangelists, if you will. You know, and lets you analyze, all of that as you're launching to your piece. Really easy page builder. It's free. You can put it on a custom domain. Definitely recommend LaunchRock. So those are a couple tools for, like, building out your site. Out of the box tools. Actually, this page from Harry's, you can get all the code to build this page from Harry's. You need to snag a developer, but you can do that on someplace like Upwork, which is freelancers around the world. And I'll send Ian this link so you can post it in the show notes. But there's a post on Tim Ferriss's blog from Harry's where you can actually download all of the code for this whole automated page with these email automations and everything that Harry's used. You just needed probably like a $50-$100 developer to set it up for you from Upwork, and you can have literally this, just put in your content. Super simple.
And another thing.
Yeah.
Feedback. So another thing that for something like this, that would be a perfect example for our dog collar is you go to like a company like wagwalking.com, which is like dog walking on demand. They already give out one free dog walk for like signing up for their platform. So go on, if you created that website that you were talking about, say, and they submit their email address, it goes to that page, and you say, if you refer a friend, you will get one free dog walk on wagwalking.com. You just go talk to the people at Wagwalking. They're gonna be like, yeah, absolutely, we'd love for you to push our stuff. And you could easily set that up, give them something for free that's valuable, that's in their ecosystem and in your ecosystem, and it literally costs you $0.
Exactly, and that's that partnerships piece. So let's say you've used either LaunchRock or let's say you've downloaded this code or built your own landing page with these general concepts. Now you need to be able to engage with people that give you their email address. So simple out of the box tools, email automation, for marketing. There's MailChimp, there's Aweber, there's tons of these email marketing automation pieces out there. I'd recommend going with one of these big ones because they're really simple to use. Their pricing on the low end plans are generally pretty free. Aweber is not free for the first piece, but MailChimp is, and they integrate with, you know, just about everything. So you can set up these automations where as soon as someone gives you their email address, you reply, like they receive a reply with a pre-formatted email that says, hey, thanks for signing up. Here's like what we're going to be talking about over the next month at these times. So, you know, make sure that, you know, we're on your safe sender list. So you see this content from us, or follow us on Facebook so you can see the content there. You know, things like that in that automated email. So you don't have to reach out to each of those people that sign up individually, but instead the internet does it for you, you know, and these are all free or cheap tools that allow you to do that so that you're able to, as we go into this next phase, because we built up our website, use something like MailChimp for email automation. In this phase where we're actually engaging, we're actually launching the give us your email so that you know when we launch the Kickstarter campaign or the Indiegogo campaign. During this phase of building, you can focus on posting those updates, reaching out to family and friends, reaching out to the press, and just generally, you know, counting down to when you're going to launch the campaign, when they can actually pre-order, you know, and really building that up. You know, so with weekly updates, you know, kind of piling on what Lydia said, you know, you want to post things about, you want to post very few things about, you know, remember to buy the product, you know, remember to, you know, give us your email address, and more things about, you know, the engagement that we all like to see, such as, you know, here's who the team is. Here's some of our prototypes. Check out the prototype that we built, and look, like, here's our 5 prototypes that we've built over time, and look how they've all been different. Look how they're all improving. And this is the final product, the final prototype that we're going to launch on Kickstarter or Indiegogo in, you know, 27 days. You know, whatever, things like that. You know, you can dive into like how you tested things. You know, how you're building things, even like your story of how you're building your Indiegogo or Kickstarter campaign. All of that content is really engaging not only for your customers who are going to be really interested in the product. If they're, you know, that's 25-year-old single dog owner in San Francisco, they're going to be really interested in your prototypes and everything like that and your process, but also your friends and family. They're like, they want to help you out. If you're producing good content, it gives them a really easy way to up your engagement, because they're going to just share that stuff for you, you know? So you need to have things that are shareable, because that's what's going to build your list more. You know, the friends and family piece is going to be small. You need those people and those early adopters, you know, that you find through some of those partnerships and through some of that, you know, press outreach to build up that list for you, so that you can count down and build towards, you know, hey, we're going to launch in 3 days. You know, whoever shares, you know, this post the most gets, you know, a product, you know, when we launch or something like that. You know, so you're really building engagement as you get to the launch, so that when you launch, you're basically just sending out, everyone knows the day you're launching, so they're thinking about it. Maybe, you know, they're the evangelists and your friends and family probably even put it on their calendar because they want to, you know, support you, and, you know, the early adopters want to buy your product. So by the time you actually launch, it's almost as simple as, you know, just throwing out that email that's like, we launched today. Everyone's going, yeah, you did. We've been waiting for you to do this for 30 days. You know, that's what that's what you want to build up. Yeah, go Lydia.
I want to pop in and call out something that we actually haven't touched on, which is the possibility of failure and the importance of managing your psyche through this. So, Aaron, you're talking about, you know, messaging your friends and family and building up that anticipation, and key, obviously. But something related to that is the fact that you're taking a huge risk by putting together a crowdfunding campaign. It doesn't, if you're used to achieving things, the crowdfunding campaign, it may or may not be successful. And so you're putting your reputation on the line in some way, even though the ultimate outcome, you can do all of these steps and it may just not catch. But my encouragement would be just like push through that. I've seen a lot of people cancel their Indiegogo campaigns prematurely because they're not getting the kind of traction they would hope for. And I think it's really important to power through that kind of fear or anxiety about potentially failing, and manage your psyche, and know that this is an incredible learning experience for you. You're only going to be a more effective communicator, a better storyteller, and more technically competent when you come out the other side of this. And don't be afraid to risk failure, because that's when big things really can happen. So I just wanted to call that out, because I think especially when you're talking to friends and family, especially when you're putting something out there that you've created or that you want to create, it's a dream. It's, it's a vulnerable thing, but I think it's important to maintain that vulnerability, keep asking for help, keep being willing to risk it, push through even those kind of scary early days when you may or may not be seeing the kind of traction you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. I mean, over the years, I know I've, tried out a bunch of different business concepts and even worked for a couple of startups. And a lot of that stuff fails. And like one of the hardest parts is, when you ask, especially when you present it out to your friends and family, because you're going like, hey, support me on this. They will, but you're always worried that, like, if I fail, like, what are they going to think of me?
Right.
But what I've found, and I think, I'm like Lydia and I have talked about this before too, because I think she's seen this too, and Ian, I'm sure as well, is that even if you fail at that, they're still going to be like, at least you tried. I haven't tried, and you're going to find like a lot of like support from that. And they're going to be like, try again. I mean, I thought it was going to work. So what do you need for help with the next one? As long as you're transparent and honest about your journey through trying that, as opposed to, just being, super dead set on like, we're gonna win, and we're gonna prove everyone wrong. We're gonna win. But instead, if you're really honest about like, we're trying to launch this project that we love, and here's the hardships, here's the ups, here's the downs, that they will surprise you with their support when you win, as well as even possibly more when you don't.
Big vision tends to get big support. Yeah. And it's always awesome to have a supportive network around you, whether your project is a smashing success or whether it's just a learning experience for you.
Exactly.
Well, and you look at, I mean, everyone talks about Elon Musk these days, but you look at Elon posts all the time, like, not sure why or like, whatever didn't launch correctly, we're not sure why it happened, looking into it.
Right.
Like he's trying to put rocket ships on Mars, right? So it's like, and like nobody, like, we're all just like, yeah, Elon, keep doing your thing, man. We all know that you're a genius, so just figure it out.
Exactly. He's like, we just blew up $1 million rocket. Hope you don't mind.
Yeah, exactly. Man, it's like, oh yeah, all right. Well, rockets tend to blow up, And to kind of put a bow on this, because we're coming up on an hour here. I think that there's a ton of other things that happen throughout the campaign. How you set your goal, how you do all that sort of stuff, and like, if you want to talk to the folks at Indiegogo or whoever, they're going to help you with that. They're going to help you work through like how to set your goal, how to do that, how to, like all of the in-app stuff or in platform stuff they'll help you with. But we just wanted to talk about how do you prep for this thing, and kind of get your mind right before you even can do that. And I'd encourage you to go talk to them. And if you want some intros, definitely feel free to reach out, because we know some folks. Anything else that you can think of before we? Oh, hey, really quick. Build a budget for Facebook campaigns, because if you don't have a budget, like for sure 100% you're going to want to do a Facebook campaign at some point, whether it's during the crowdfunding campaign or before, or hopefully you probably did some when you were testing customer development, but definitely build that in. Any thoughts on that?
I would just say you can, if you've got a small budget, you can really just boost key posts. Ones with videos are really powerful and likely to get shared. Ones with images. I wouldn't worry so much about texting or about promoting text only updates because engagement with that is something like 5x less than if you have an image or a video accompanying. And also get familiar with what makes for good social media posts. You really can Google that and you'll see plenty of information out there. You know, something with a question in it, a post with a question in it gets 4 times the engagement. A question with a picture or a post with a picture in it gets 5 times the engagement. So lots of great information out there. Google it, find out, and craft your messaging appropriately. And that way you can spend really smart, spend that marketing campaign really, or marketing fund really smartly. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Is like, know the nuances of just like the general social media posting. But yeah, I would definitely agree. There's done the work of defining your customer. If you're looking for like a 25-year-old single guy in San Francisco who's a dog owner, with Facebook ads, you can demographically target that person. Like, where do I find these people? I know it's a product for these people. The place that you find any demographic is Facebook. Everyone's on Facebook every day. Half the world is on Facebook. So if you can't find them on Facebook, that is your fault. That is not Facebook's fault.
Well, and you can build a lookalike audience once you find those folks.
Exactly. So Facebook will even help you find the right people after you've found some of the right people that are being the most engaged. So where that falls into what these timelines is, you can either use that for Facebook. If we had more time, I'd show you probably the size of the audience of single male dog owners in San Francisco, which I bet there's a lot of them because I see them all the time. But
more dogs than children in San Francisco, by the way.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Wow. It's a very unique customer. But so where you end up using something like that paid marketing. And so for something like Kickstarter or Indiegogo, I would definitely use Facebook ads if you're going to do any paid advertising because you can target demographically. So either do it in the early phase where you're trying to get email addresses and get people to share it, because someone like that single male dog owner in San Francisco, they know a bunch of other single male dog owners in San Francisco, right? So if an ad pops up in their feed and they click through and give their email address and you have it set up for easy sharing, guys, check out this thing I found that I know we've all joked about before that we want to talk to our dogs. We should totally all get these things and see what our dogs say to each other, right? So something like that. So targeting those people in the email collection phase, that pre-launch phase can be really valuable. And then it's a different campaign after the it's a different piece after the campaign launches that you'll probably want to do more of that marketing after you've already got friends and family, early adopters that have bought into the campaign. So there's some of that in. If it's the first time that people from those Facebook ads are seeing your campaign, that they're not just coming to a page where it's, hey, 0 have been purchased, but it's more like, oh, I've bought into this, therefore there's some social proof and now I'll jump on it. And then things like Indiegogo and Kickstarter in this case make it really easy to share, from their platform already. So that part's built in for them to share it with that existing community. So I definitely agree, using something like Facebook ads, super valuable because you can target demographically. So if you've done that work that you should do of really, really, really defining your customer, Facebook can target that specific customer for you, guaranteed.
Yeah, and I know that there's some really good data on not having a YouTube video go over an hour, which we are. So we need to get off. Thanks everyone for hanging out. We appreciate it. Thank you, Lydia and Aaron. Lydia, Mariah Creatives PR.com, and you can. What's your Twitter handle?
It's LM_Davey. So Lima Mike _DAVEY.
Okay, go follow her and ask her questions, and we appreciate your time. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Cool.